Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1 question, 2 research reviews, and 3 actionable health tips, all centered around the Lifestyle First method, your blueprint for the 10 key routes of optimal health and happiness. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 10, as we continue to take a deep dive with my co-authors into the book, A Prescription for Healthy Living. So the theme in the Lifestyle First method we're exploring today is first. What are those first things you need to do or think about when you're changing your lifestyle or focusing on your health? And I want to talk about holistic health today. So one question we're discussing is how to integrate ancient Eastern traditions into modern healthcare practices. 2 references to support today's discussion are the chapter on medical acupuncture in A Prescription for Healthy Living and also the book Western Medical Acupuncture. So today I have with me a very interesting guest, Dr. Carolyn Rubens. Now, Carolyn is a GP and she's also a lifestyle medicine practitioner. She's a former president of the British Medical Acupuncture Society and also co-founder of CBAS, which is community-based acupuncture service in Brighton. And alongside all of that, as importantly, of course, she is daughter, sister, wife, mom to 2 children, owner of a cat, and since lockdown, also a chicken and a puppy owner too. So clearly very, very busy. Carolyn's also trained in anthropology before studying medicine, and she's also got an arts background. So she really does have a really very broad approach to medicine. So welcome, Carolyn. It's really lovely to have you on the show. I wanted to kick off actually by asking you about holistic health, given your broad, expansile skill set. When we think about health, one of the first things I think we should do is think as broadly as possible, because we do get really entrained, don't we, into thinking in our own channels. So I guess my first question to you would be, what does holistic health mean to you?
That's a really great question, Alka, and I'm delighted to be here talking to you about this today. I think that it is very easy when you're trained in Western medicine to sort of go down the rabbit hole of one symptom and one problem and sort of what's the solution. And but in general practice and in different fields, and certainly from the patient's point of view, I think increasingly we're realizing the importance of a more holistic view. So by that, I think the best way of looking at that is probably to consider the patient's perspective on life. What is their life? The kind of things that we sort of cover in what we now call the new field of lifestyle medicine. How do you live your day? What's important to you? Are you out exercising? What do you eat? When do you eat? How do you eat? Who do you socialize with? It's looking at all of these aspects, because I think increasingly we're aware that it's all of these little things that we do in our lifestyle that contribute to our overall health. So looking at things in a holistic way means just considering every aspect of that individual. And I think that another reason we possibly find it hard in our Western medical system is it's quite a reductionist approach. And really what we need to be trying to do as much as possible is consider all aspects of all the many different causes that can cause all sorts of different conditions and issues with our health.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something really important. I think my penny drop moment was when I realized that actually I knew so much about my patients. I knew where they were going on holiday. I knew where their children went to school. I even knew what kind of socks they wore, because of course they were on my couch and examining them. But what I didn't know was what mattered to them, who didn't know what was really, really important to them. And these are the drivers in life, aren't they? I think unless we learn that about each other, we can't possibly be providing advice and solutions and expecting patients, clients to get on and do the things we tell them to do, unless we kind of really understand what fuels behavior, what fuels change, what fuels motivation. Because I think these are really, really fundamental, important things to know about each other. And that's the behavioral activation side, isn't it? That's also the holistic side, is really understanding what it's like to have a day in your shoes, to wear those shoes, to live that life, to understand what's coming from within, to be a driver.
Absolutely. And I think once we get into the mindset, as it were, of the person sitting in front of us, they may present with what appear to be similar symptoms, but actually they've got a completely different approach to life and thought process and lifestyle. And that's why that one person A over person B, presenting with the same symptom, person A might have a much quicker exit from this problem and different attitude, and patient B might just have all sorts of factors that make it more difficult to improve their lifestyle, just due to circumstance and also possibly mindset as well.
So let's talk about some of your sort of experiences and skills and the tools that you use and practice. So certainly you're highly trained in acupuncture. I'd be really interested to know how you sort of embed that and, as you say, sort of blend those Eastern, Western cultures, because actually what we're noticing now is suddenly all the things that have been going on in the East for centuries, years, that have stood the test of time, things like yoga, for example, have suddenly become really popular here. And I think some of it is understanding sort of how the mechanisms of these sorts of daily practices work. And I think once you understand some of the mechanisms, it becomes much more useful to be able to sort of understand how you can embed these things into your day. But I'd be really interested in your work on acupuncture and how the theories around acupuncture start to sort of work alongside sort of more common practices that we're very aware of here in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. I first came across acupuncture when I was studying anthropology before medicine. It was part of the Thai traditional medical system, which is a mixture of the Chinese and Ayurvedic Indian systems. And I was actually looking in my thesis at the compatibility of the Thai system with the Western medical system. And what I found was two very different approaches. The reductionist Western approach, a pill for every ill, one symptom, one solution, whereas the traditional approach was much more complicated. It was treating, and it was much more individualistic. It was taking every aspect of that person's life, and then it was making an individual prescription, whether it was acupuncture, herbs, a concoction of different treatments to treat a constellation of symptoms. So what I try to do is use acupuncture when there are a lot of different symptoms going on. And I find that really useful as a GP, because it's difficult to deal with lots of different problems from a traditional general practice approach. But if you're doing acupuncture, then you start to see sort of the different, how different symptoms can link in with each other. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is it popular? Are you finding that there is an increasing demand for this? Is this something that patients are coming to you asking for, or is it more that you're needing to sort of offer different ways of thinking, different ways of approaching that kind of the symptoms that people have?
It's a mixture of both things, really. Sometimes acupuncture can be really helpful to fix things quite quickly. Take, for example, when you get what we call trigger points or tight bands of skeletal muscle, say in the trapezius or in the masseter muscle in the jaw. If somebody's got a tight jaw and they've tried lots and lots of medication and they've tried to alter their lifestyle and to de-stress, but actually you can use acupuncture just to release the tightness in that muscle, just very, very simply, just like that. And similarly, when people have got headaches, you can get these characteristic referral patterns from these tight trigger points that cause these headaches, and people are taking lots of over-the-counter medicines and really struggling to deal with this day to day. I find just a very quick course of acupuncture can be really quick and effective. And once people know that, then there's sort of no going back, really. Particularly things like migraines, when people have suffered for many years and then they realize that acupuncture can prevent it, then they're very, very keen to do that. Sometimes people think, oh, that's a funny thing, needles, not sure about that. But it's a surprising number of people that have had some experience of acupuncture or know somebody that has. And most people are pretty positive about it. And they certainly like the combination of being a doctor and also doing acupuncture.
No, absolutely. I must tell you my own personal experience. Actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. But I developed a frozen shoulder over last lockdown, so last year, and incredibly painful. When I say sort of 12 out of 10, I do mean 12 out of 10. And I felt a lot of pressure from my family, my peers, my colleagues, my friends to go and see a specialist and get a steroid injection. And that was what I was hearing every day. People could see my pain. I was, in pain, doing everything that I knew to do to alleviate that, not resorting to wanting medication. And I certainly didn't want a steroid injection, but there was this sense around me that was really boiling up that this was the only thing that I could do and have my fix. But actually what I chose to do instead was go and see somebody to help me with some acupuncture. And prior to this I wouldn't necessarily have thought about it, but actually for me the acupuncture experience was incredibly enlightening and provided me absolutely the relief that I needed. My pain levels dropped from being on my knees to a 4 or 5 out of 10. And that's a significant change in what I was able to do, how my mood and tone for the day was, really had a significant impact on me. And my acupuncturist talked to me about sort of, energy fields and different fields and some of the theories behind it. But I think, sometimes what I really wanted to kind of get at with that was the pressure that society imposes on itself to deal with things in one way. Back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, is that we're in our channels, aren't we? Right, you've got this, you need to do that. You've got this, you need to do that. But until you broaden that mindset and look at other options and think about risks and benefits much more widely, something like acupuncture doesn't necessarily even come to the forefront of people's minds. So how do we raise the profile of other things that are accessible, that speak to individuals as well? What do you think the kind of mechanisms for that would be?
I think as doctors, we've got a real role in promoting these other therapies, because I think that for so long they've been so misunderstood by the medical profession. It's in a way our sort of duty to understand the evidence behind them so that we can give them their rightful place to support patients. Because it frustrates me when, as you say, someone, for example, who's has to go all the way to see a neurologist, might have even had Botox injections, and it's only after all of that that the last resort might be acupuncture. And similarly with your frozen shoulder, people often come to you having gone through the mill and through the system, when really something so simple early on could have prevented their problem. So I suppose it's about raising awareness in medical schools. It's about, I speak to a lot of GP groups. They sort of try and raise the interest there so that they might like to train in it. There's also, within acupuncture, there's traditional acupuncturists, and then there are Western trained acupuncturists. And I think there can be misunderstanding between those two groups, because one is based on Chinese traditional medicine and one is based on Western medicine. And I think what really matters is that making acupuncture as affordable and accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I guess my next question was probably then around that sort of the training and what is involved. If you are somebody who wants to sort of learn more, what are the best routes to be able to do that? And not necessarily learn more to be the acupuncturist, but just to sort of, again, understand it a lot more. And I think as medics, we often want to look at the evidence as well and know that there's proof in the pudding before we'll embark on doing anything as well. So where do we find information, evidence? Where do we find that sort of basic core understanding of how these processes work, not just as doctors, but equally patients, clients, people who are undergoing treatment? You've got to understand what's going on to really sort of get the best value from what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I think if you want a sort of short summary, the new book that we've both been involved in, A Prescription for Healthy Living, that's recently come out, edited by wonderful Emma Short, has provided, I think, a really good way of people accessing evidence-based, clear, and accessible, quite succinct information about topics such as acupuncture. And I've written a chapter in there that people could have a look at. The British Medical Acupuncture Society also have their website, which provides an awful lot of information for people who are considering having acupuncture treatment. And there's also the British Acupuncture Council. They have a lot of information on their website. Another large field where acupuncture is used is in the field of cancer care. And again, there are books and I've written about in the latest edition of Western Medical Acupuncture. We'll have chapters on each area. I've written the one on palliative care, but each topic, if it's dermatology, if it's gynecology, and just where you can just get an understanding of how your condition might be able to be helped by a particular by acupuncture.
And can you give us an idea of what those areas might be for people who are listening today? If they've got feelings, constellation of symptoms, things going on. You've mentioned sort of things like migraine. I've mentioned my frozen shoulder. You've mentioned cancer. What are the areas that actually, I talk about lifestyle first all the time. What are the areas that we could be thinking about acupuncture first before we think about other modalities of treatment?
Yeah, well, there's a whole range of things. There are the musculoskeletal things such as the frozen shoulder, but also acupuncture is very good for knee pain, for hip pain, for people who've got sort of mild arthritis to prevent having to go on to the next stages and things like surgery. It can be useful for all the sort of itises of what we call inflammation, but might just be a sort of a wear and tear kind of change. So things like plantar fasciitis. It's also useful for some gynecological conditions. So it's very useful for hot flushes. We're not entirely sure of the mechanism for that, but both for menopausal hot flushes, but also hot flushes that are induced by hormone treatment for cancer patients, both breast cancer and prostate. So it can be a really nice treatment for those people who can't take other things like HRT on top. It can be used for things like period pains, irritable bladder. It has the wonderful thing about acupuncture is that it has such lovely side effects. It actually helps with sleep. It helps promote mood, helps promote feelings of relaxation. So people might often come for if they're feeling low or for insomnia. It's also used in fertility quite a lot. And there's a lot of research around that. And people often like to choose that as a sort of milder approach than IVF or even to complement IVF treatment. Lots and lots of things. Sinus problems, headaches.
Gosh, it's
husband often jokes, is there anything that acupuncture does?
I know. I should ask for the opposite list. What can't acupuncture sort of treat? And I think it is very much about sort of personal experience, isn't it? It is about sometimes using this either first or before trying other things, or it's using it alongside other things, or maybe it is at that end point when you have tried other things. It's got a place everywhere in that journey of health, hasn't it? And actually also what works for one person may not work for another. But as you say, the side effects seem to be so minimal with it as well, that actually it's always something that is useful to try with that right mindset that this is going to be helpful and effective for me as well. So one last question before we get to the end is, again, trying to find a therapist that's recognised and recommended, because again, Dr. Google will pull up all sorts of suggestions. What's your suggestions for if someone is looking to think about acupuncture for themselves? Where's the best place to look?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, because it is very, very difficult, because it is still an unregulated profession to a certain extent. Healthcare professionals are covered by their own professional bodies, but I mean, both traditional and Western acupuncturists, so there's some very, very good ones out there, but unfortunately, due to this lack of regulation, it's difficult, as you say, to know. If you go to the British Medical Acupuncture Society and go under Find a Practitioner, you can just type in your postcode and that will bring up any registered healthcare professional in your area who's been trained by the British Medical Acupuncture Society. So you know that their safety standards are there, that they've got the relevant anatomy and physiology, and that they've been really thoroughly trained. So that's a good way of finding someone that you know is, I mean, there are many, many great acupuncturists, but you would know by going through that route that you've got someone who's up to date and has done their all their CPD and training, and possibly has their diploma as well.
Yeah, that's really useful, Carolyn, and very, very reassuring to know that there is a place that you can find all of that.
And it's even, acupuncture will even be covered privately by insurers if it's an acupuncturist who's got their accreditation to a certain level.
And now, here is your lifestyle first prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
What sort of advice have you got when, again, we're talking about holistic health? What are your kind of maybe 3 actions that people can take today?
Goodness, there's so many different things, aren't there? But it is good to have some sort of practical takeaway things. And I think you've got to start with yourself. I think in our society, we're not always brought up to put ourselves first, and it's sort of seen as a selfish thing. So there's sort of self-care and prioritizing your own needs first, so that then you've got more to give from your cup. So, I can imagine you sort of soldiering on with your sore shoulder, but slightly too long. Possibly, I'm sure I would do the same thing if I in a similar position. And it's just that trying to prioritize yourself so that you can be the best you can without feeling bad about that. I would say, go and get your, whatever it is, do your meditation or your acupuncture treatment, or seek some sort of support that you need so your needs are met. I think a big one for me is do something that you enjoy every day. I think when we do that, I think so many people in our society are feeling lethargic and lacking motivation. It's so easy to get drained by modern life, but another way to sort of fill your cup is to do something that you enjoy, because that will give you that energy, because then our energy comes from lots of different sources, doesn't it? So by doing something that you enjoy, again, it's not being selfish, it's putting you in a better place, and I'm sure the people around you as well. Lastly, I'd probably say just try and choose small achievable goals. So, if you've had an injury, again, taking your shoulder, for example, rather than, I think often, and I talk about this a lot with my patients who've gone through cancer treatment, they're so frustrated at their, say, exercise tolerance, or what they used to be able to do, or how things were. And I think it's about sort of resetting to where you are now, and just small achievable goals so that you're winning, and not trying to have set too lofty and high goals over a long period of time. Just a little daily, just achieving one little thing each day, and I think you can be proud of yourself.
Oh, completely echo that. I think those are all amazing, really tangible things that we can go away and do. And as you say, sort of celebrate that moment when you have done that one thing that's taken you that little bit closer to what you want. Because again, we often let that moment pass as well, don't we? We say, okay, did that, and on we go to the next goal, the next milestone, and not actually recognize that what we have done is very much worthy of our celebration and recognition of it. So that's really great advice. Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's been fantastic listening to you, and really great, insightful information that you've given us today. I'm sure people will want to get in touch or find out more about what you do. So what's the best way to find you?
I'm on Instagram as Dr Carolyn Rubens, and also working from Longleaf Acupuncture in Eastbourne, which is a holistic healthcare and health food centre. So those are probably the best ways.
Amazing.
Thank you. Also my details are on the British Medical Acupuncture Society website.
great. I'm sure people will be reaching out to you. I'm going to certainly take a look at that list myself. So thank you so much, Carolyn. It's been a real pleasure having you here today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved it. Thank you.
And before I bring today's episode to a close, a reminder that the doors to the Lifestyle First Academy are open with my course designed to help you to discover, notice and activate who you are, what you want and where you are going so that you can create a happy, healthy lifestyle. And I would, of course, love you to subscribe and share this channel. The links are just below. So just subscribe and share so that you too can help to spread messages of health that matter. Which simply leaves me to say, as always, I wish you a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast, making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe and share. And we'd love it if you'd be kind enough to leave a review. To learn more or to arrange a consultation, please visit www.dralkapatel.com. See you next time.